Hello and welcome to Asia Rugby. 1064 days of Test Rugby's absent in Asia is almost over as the Division 2 will kick off this Sunday between Pakistan and Thailand. And the main one, the Rugby World Cup 23 qualifier between South Korea, Hong Kong, and Malaysia will be played on the coming week. In fact, South Korea will host their game against Malaysia on 4th of June in Korea. And I got two coaches, of course. Charles Low of South Korea, the man who was in charge of South Korea's sevens team at the Olympics, and now also in charge of South Korea's 15. Charles, very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Sabia. Good to see you, mate.
Good to see you again. And of course, Malaysia's coach, former All Blacks legend, Rodney Osoyalo, is joined with us. Very good morning to you, Rodney.
Good morning, Xavier.
Charles, let me ask you first. Asia Rugby Championship is something that South Korea put their heart and soul. You have a proud history in terms of winning this previously so many times. And how has been this challenge and in terms of post-COVID environment?
It has been very, very challenging with the COVID slowly being lifted. But yeah, it's just the most important thing is just to get the players together, get them working as a group, and then all having a common sort of goal. So it's been challenging because we've had a couple of injuries from the Korean Rugby League. But we've managed to pull through, and we're getting everybody on the same page and working towards, as I said, a common goal, so we can hopefully um, uh, hopefully can achieve play some good rugby. I think that's at the end of the day we want to do after so many years of not playing.
Rodney, over the years, Malaysia 15s has improved drastically to become a top tier nation in the 15s format. When you took in charge, you mentioned that Rome was not built in a day. Certainly, you got the talents and the skills from the in your Malaysian team. But how has this challenge been for you?
Yeah, it's been challenging. I mean, everyone's had the COVID situation happen, so you've got that situation you have to deal with. And in the case of Malaysia, the competition is not really as strong, and obviously not being a professional team, you find it quite difficult to bring people in because they've got their own family obligations and job obligations. So you have to balance that sort of thing out here, and so you got those difficulties. But it's one that's been it's had its challenges, but exciting.
Of course, it is exciting. Of course, the COVID hit entire Asia, and glad that the return to play is back, and especially the 15s format. As I mentioned before, the Test Rugby is the pinnacle of Asia Rugby in terms of which lead for the Rugby World Cup qualifiers. Charles, if I may ask, that we saw that in South Korean domestic league, so many young talents coming up, especially in the university leagues. How interested and how vital is that for you to get the fundamental setup done in terms of selecting the squad?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, getting the Korean Rugby League up and running, playing week after week, was a I wouldn't say it was a challenge, but I'd say it was a important step in putting careers systems in place so we can identify and bring through the talent. What it did do, it allowed us to identify players or future players, so we can see them week in, week out. It's not just a once-off game where they do something well and then next week, you don't see them for like another 5 weeks or 6 weeks. And so we were looking to identify consistency. That was one of the main sort of areas. And then, looking to see like succession plans, especially in the sevens, like after the Olympics, looking at seeing which players, how long they got left in their careers in the sevens, and which players in the 15s, how we're going to bring them through over the next couple of years. So it was very entertaining. I think it was a very well put together project from Korea Rugby Union. And for myself and the selectors, it was exceptionally rewarding. So we hope that those players in the next year or two can come through, and we'll wait and see how they develop.
You did mention, Charles, that Korea Rugby can surpass Japan. And you also mentioned that you wish there could be superstars like Son Heung-min, who plays for Tottenham Hotspur. Talk us through that.
Yeah, I don't think I ever said that. I don't think we could like Japan's system is really what what makes them so good. They've got like international players that are coming there. They've got international coaches at their domestic levels. So if someone said that I said that, I don't think that's quite true. I said we maybe can be competitive against Japan in the sevens format. That's what I did say. In the 15s format, it's going to take many, 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 many years to even get us close to where Japan is now. But in the sevens format, I think we can be competitive. Uh, Competitiveness, as Rodney knows, is being in the game with about 2 minutes to go. So even if you're down 19-14 in a sevens game, you can still win it. You just don't want to be in a situation in a sevens game where it's 54 points to 12, and there's no ways you can win that game. So, for our perspective, sevens wise, is to develop the younger players, get them participating, give them experience, and make sure that they get used to playing against foreign teams. Whether it doesn't matter what team it is, it's whether it's let's just say Tonga, Samoa, like Australia, South Africa, those sort of teams, Uruguay. And once they start playing those games, they can gain confidence. And then over a period of time, the Korean players are pretty good, so they'll be able to perform. And with the confidence over time, we can be competitive in the sevens environment, whether it's in the World Sevens Series or in the World Sevens Challenger Series.
Absolutely, indeed. The margin for error in sevens is very small or so
Yeah.
short. But apologies if you didn't mention that early on, because my translation said that one of the Korea Rugby social media post that you mentioned as such, but we would like to see something happening like that as
No,
well.
we all know what happens in the media. Like it's you say something and then it's slightly gets changed and then it ends up being totally different to what you originally said or what you meant.
Absolutely, fair enough. Rodney, coming back to you, talk us through your preparation, Rodney. The rugby is back, which is the good news. You mentioned about your domestic league and the preparation in terms of getting this squad. How tough was that?
It's been really tough, to be honest. We don't really have a competition that's sustainable at the moment, and that's the difficulties that we have as being able to as consistently get games, and then obviously getting the players down here, down to KL or myself traveling around Malaysia to try and find some talent has been a little bit difficult. But it has been an eye opener for me, to drive around and see what's around and what's needed. So hopefully we've got the right people in place to take on Korea in the next few days.
The last they played in 2019 Asia Rugby Championship and 2018 as well, but the score margin doesn't really reflect for this year's, because 3 years quite a lot of absence. But where do you think what sort of threat you think that Charles team going to pose you?
Oh, they're a talented team. They obviously surprised me in regards to the way that they played, because you didn't really expect Korea or any other Asian countries to perform the way that they do. So, from my personal view of what I've seen, I've only seen Korea. Oh, sorry, I've only seen Japan and the likes of Hong Kong play. So seeing Korea play the way that they do is actually quite, I'm quite impressed with the way that they move and the way they perform. Talent in their team, so it's going to be difficult for us. But for us, it's about bridging space and bridging the gap between the two countries, and hopefully we can give Korea a decent game.
Well, the Korea versus Malaysia will be on 4th June, and the winner will play Hong Kong on 9th July. there's a 1 month break in terms of preparation, and the winner of that game will play Tonga on 23rd of July. So the winner of Tonga game will directly go to the Rugby World Cup, and the loser still have a chance to play on the qualifiers. Charlie, your sevens team did have a preparation tour before the Olympics in USA. Did you have any enough preparation or playing a few friendlies before this encounter?
Before the World Cup or before?
Before the Malaysia game, which will be playing in a week's time.
No. We solely relied on the Korean Rugby League to get the players physically ready and identify players and just basically rugby fitness. We've selected a squad, an extended squad, so we can actually play against each other. So yeah, we haven't had any preparation against any external teams, but we have been using extended squad members to sort of help the players understand what is going to be required in the game. You know, what they need to do in certain areas of the field. So yeah, it has been difficult. I mean, as Rodney understands, it's not easy in the smaller rugby player nations. It's you have not only do you have problems with player availability, but you also have like problems with what do you want to call it? Having access to facilities, recovery, you know, all the stuff that we expect we expect from your tier one player nations. You now have to find people or places that you can actually do these recovery in, and so it takes time. It's really frustrating at times, but you know, because you want what's best for the players. But yeah, we're getting around it. We're finding solutions to problems, and we're moving forward. So I think that's the most important thing.
And we understand that you implemented so many scientific training and also getting that GPS and in fact, scientific training with your squad, Charlie. Is that the same thing, Rodney, in the Malaysian setup? And how
Well,
important that is?
we would love that at the moment, but at the moment we've got a limited budget over here, um, and in access to things, it's a little bit scarce at the moment.
I'm sure that is important aspect in the obviously the elite level rugby in any part of the game, Rodney. Hopefully, the winner with South Korea perhaps will allow your Malaysian rugby union to get some budget on you.
Yeah, well, the boys are working hard. So I'll be honest and say that I've been impressed with their energy and their attitude. So one thing that I maybe is I've questioned before is the passionate, how passionate they are. So, and they've really shown that the last couple of months. So, yeah, we're excited.
Wonderful. We hope that will come across. Charlie, I want to ask you one final question that how has been the support from the Korea Rugby Union and the sponsors and the rest of the stakeholders?
I mean, yeah, you're always getting support. You know, the Korea Rugby Union obviously is trying to assist us as best as they possibly can. You know, we have certain requirements that we would like with regard to making sure that the players are well taken care of. And it's just a constant negotiation between us and the Korea Rugby Union. They are doing their best to try and help us achieve our desires, if you want to put it that way, but our objectives. And yeah, it's just a constant process. It's I think as the unions become more sort of financially viable, so you can get more and more things to help develop the game. But yeah, we in discussions constantly, and we're trying to move forward and find solutions and help develop and look after the players.
Rodney, talking about your supporters and your sponsors and the stakeholders, because we know that for the fact so many Malaysians love All Blacks, and when you come in, I'm sure there's lots of hope that All Black is coaching, and also we saw that lots of sponsors came into Malaysia Rugby Union to support. How has been the support in terms of the rest of the stakeholders?
Yeah, the support has been good. We're definitely having the same issues as Charlie is. That we're in conversations with people, and I understand that we have to perform well in order for us to get more sponsors on board and people and more supporters jumping on board. So um, it's up to us really to see where we can help out in that area.
Like I mentioned, gentlemen, at the beginning, there's 1,064 days without no test rugby in Asia. Is there any change in terms of preparation or in terms of a systematical change with the COVID impact? Charlie?
I'll let you take this one, Rod.
Yeah, well, there's many changes. We've had some. Obviously, Charlie's talking about internal games, which you normally do in this situation because you can't play. You don't have any competitive teams that you can play that usually you would play. So you have to think outside the square and try create other ways of getting exactly the same outcome that you want. So it's been challenging in that area.
Yeah, I think another aspect is just the contact as well. So for 160 odd days, the players haven't had a consistent level of contact. And that's one of the reasons why we implemented the Career Rugby League, to make sure there's a follow-on from the Career Rugby League into the Asia Rugby Championship, just purely and simply because that's what happens anywhere else in the world. You normally have a domestic league, and then the domestic league, you select your teams, and then they play in the Super Rugby, or they play in the Tri Nations or the Rugby Championship, irrespective of which country it is. It all follows the same format. So yeah, it's been tough because some players haven't played, and condition-wise, they're not 100% ready to play after having had so many, I suppose, probably 160 days off. Yeah. So it's a process. It's all I can say. I mean, for anyone that's coached rugby, it's a long process to get players ready to compete, not just to compete, but compete at the top level. And I think that's the critical area. Is anyone can compete, everyone can go and play the game, but to compete and perform at the top level when it's required, that takes a lot of preparation and a lot of sort of experience.
Wonderful. Charlie, how many sevens players are playing in these 15s?
For this particular game against Malaysia, we've got about I think we've got about 8 players from the national sevens program, and then once the Malaysian game's finished, we got to start our World Cup preparation for sevens. So we're going to lose, out of those 8 players, we're probably going to lose about 5 players to the sevens program. But the good thing is we've identified other players to come in. So it's just we've selected basically a group of extended squad of 35 players, so we can rotate them between different games, and if players do fall out of injury or in the sevens program, we've got other players to take their place. That's been a really, really interesting organizing. I think that to me has been the biggest challenge, but also the most rewarding one, because you've got players that want to play sevens. They want to go to the Rugby World Cup sevens. So they want to play 15s as well, but they sort of caught in between. They say, well, and the negative thing is like if we put all our sevens players into the 15s program and they get injured, then we don't have a good squad to take the Rugby World Cup sevens. So I've have to allocate certain players to play, but keep other players in reserve, because if I send them all to play and they all get injured, we don't have any players in specific positions. So yeah, that's been entertaining. Rod will know about sevens, but yeah, it's been entertaining. Yeah,
that's quite interesting, Charlie, because that's not one bite of cherry, that's 2 bite of cherry. Players want to play both, which is quite.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, that's the reality of the situation in rugby. You've got players that, let's say, New Zealand All Black players that want to play Super Rugby. But Caleb Clark's a prime example. And I know some players have been pulled out of, I mean, when Titch was coaching the sevens, they were pulled out of Super Rugby and they went to the Olympics in Rio. So you've got players that want to play both. But in most countries, they have two separate programs. They've got a sevens program and a 15s program. And because we want to be competitive in both of these sort of programs, we're starting to separate the squad. We're starting to identify younger players, and we're starting to give them sort of opportunities in the sevens program. And then as they get a little bit older, we'll move them from the sevens program into the 15s program, and then that they'll be well developed or more experienced, having played a lot of sevens. So that's the idea. Whether it comes to fruition is another story. So we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah. Just
How
on
is
the
that?
side, sorry,
Yeah.
Sabia, on a side note, like I've known Rodney since 2003. I think it was 2003 when he came to South Africa to play in the George Sevens. And like Gordon Titchens is a very good friend of mine, and that's the first time I met Rodney. So it's for Rodney and myself, it's going back like almost 20 years, our last encounter, where we actually met each other and chatted to each other. Yeah. So it'll be good to see you again, Rod.
Yeah, you too, Charlie.
Well, challenge accepted. Before we
There's
go
no
for
challenge. It's two rugby people getting together and enjoying the game. Yeah.
No, of course, we understand that. Rod, just if you can mention about your 7 system and the 15 system, are there any 7s players in this 15 squad?
Yes, this is the first time we've actually we've been able to have access to the sevens players. So we've got 4 in our system. So for us, I think 15s is a very important part of the sevens game. So when you come into a little bit of the 15s game, you're a little bit tighter. You don't have as much space. So when they go back into their systems, they've got more space awareness, and what's actually happening on the field. So having these guys in our program has been it's not only been good for us, but I believe it's been good for them. They've really enjoyed the environment and what it does for them, so they can go back into their 7 systems, and it looks like they're a lot more comfortable with a lot more space. So so it's been good having these boys here.
Wonderful. Charlie, coming back to you, you did mention that 20 years of friendship, you last seen Rodney in South Africa. I mean, this is what rugby is about. It
Correct.
makes
Yeah.
that unbound friendship, and it's all about this sport where it takes. Finally, Charlie, do you want to give a clue to Rodney how your team will play or encounter on that day, with forwards or with backs?
No, I mean it's rugby. Rugby is just a simple game. It's not really difficult. We just sometimes as coaches make it difficult for the players to understand. So I think what's the most important thing is just keep it really simple, and just do the basics and do them well, accurately, and then that's the key aspect of the game. I mean, I know Malaysia is a good team. They've really developed really well over the last couple of years. I know the COVID's hit them just like it's hit all the countries around the world. But I think at the end of the day, it's just a simple game. Which players are going to be able to perform the basics under pressure? It's just that's what it's going to boil down to. And for someone like Rodney, who's played at a very high level, and he understands that. And it's just whether the players can execute it. That's always the key issue. If we go and play against a team that's really strong, let's say we go and play against the All Blacks or go and play against South Africa as a Korean team, the first thing that you are under is under tremendous pressure, because everything is happening quicker. And that is the key issue. The key issue is, can you handle that pressure? Can you still execute the basic skills and make the right decisions under that pressure? And that's the difficult part as you move up the levels in the game, irrespective whether it's 7s or 15s. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Rugby is simple. Keep it simple. Rodney, what sort of change, or what sort of, what sort of play we can expect on 4th of June against South Korea?
I think both teams, to be honest, both teams are going to be pretty tough on each other. But I think Charlie's hit it on the head there. It comes down to execution. So under pressure. So whatever teams executes their play at 100%, and obviously does it well, that team's going to get a little bit of a better flow on. So So both teams are going to be, be tough on each other, and we're really excited about it. And I know Charlie well, so I know that his team will be drilled quite well. So the boys are looking forward to it, and no doubt that the Korea boys will looking forward to it too.
One final question, Rodney. How long does it take to make or create a player like Rodney in Malaysian setup?
Jeez, I know there's a lot of talent out here. There is a lot of talent. Just being able to identify which ones and then sort of groom them into where you need them to be. There's a lot of rice out here, so we need to kind of look at their diet a little bit and make sure that their input versus the output is sort of matches. So there's a bit of challenge around their diets a bit here as well. So, but yeah, there is a lot of talent out here.
Wonderful, Rodney. As you mentioned, I finished from your quote, Rome was not built in one day. So Malaysia Rugby certainly have time, and we are going to witness hopefully a cracking game on June 4th in Korea. Charlie, Rodney, wish you all the very best, and we'll be watching the games, and we'll come back with the post-match interviews with you guys.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you soon, man.
Cheers, bye-bye.
Cheers, man.